Hello, everyone, and welcome to the U.S. Center. My name is Tom DiLiberto. I'm a Master of Ceremony here at the U.S. Center, and I'm from NOAA, so it is my distinct pleasure to introduce here for our event, U.S. Industry Climate Solutions for Global Partners, my Department of Commerce colleague, Victoria Yu, the Senior Climate Trade Policy Specialist.
Thank you. Good morning and welcome all to this event. We're very excited to be working with our interagency partners at USTDA and EXIM, as well as featuring some really renowned companies. Today, this event is one of the only conversations here at the U.S. Center focused on exports and industry, so really excited to have this conversation. I'd like to start off by introducing my boss, who will be providing some opening remarks, Marisa Lago, Undersecretary for Trade at the U.S. Department of Commerce. She has a distinguished career in public service with expertise in international markets, trade, financial regulation, and enforcement. Before joining ITA, she led the New York City Department of City Planning and City Planning Commission, and under the Obama-Biden administration, she served in the Department of the Treasury as Assistant Secretary for International Markets and Development. She also has a long list of accomplishments. I could go on for much longer, but in the interest of getting straight to this program, I'd like to turn it over to Undersecretary of Commerce for Trade, Marisa Lago.
Well, good morning. What a treat it is to be here in the U.S. Center on a panel that is focused on how the private sector can help us achieve our goals, and in particular, we believe it is the only panel that is focused on exports that will be here in this center. It is another special treat to be here with two of my colleagues, the chair of the Export-Import Bank, Rita Jo Lewis, and the director of the U.S. Trade and Development Agency, Eno Ebong. Some of you who may have been to other climate and energy-related conferences may know that we are a traveling trio because between our three agencies, we bring so many tools. So let me tell you a little bit about the portion of the Department of Commerce that I have the privilege of leading. It's called the International Trade Administration, or ITA. Our mission is to create prosperity by promoting trade and investment, by strengthening the competitiveness of U.S. businesses and, importantly, and workers, and by ensuring fair trade and compliance with U.S. trade laws and agreements. We have a global team of over 2,300 people, and they are on the ground in over 100 locations, urban, suburban, and rural in the United States, and also in 80 locations internationally, including in Dubai and also in Abu Dhabi. These trade pros use trade policy and promotion tools to support U.S. companies as they bring their innovative technologies, their services, and their expertise around the world. And 85% of the companies that we serve are micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. Now, the reason that ITA is here at COP28 alongside an alphabet soup of other U.S. government agencies is because we know that we cannot talk about economic prosperity without addressing the greatest challenges of this century, climate change, obviously. Since day one of the Biden-Harris administration, we've taken unprecedented climate action in the United States. We've mobilized a whole of government effort in every sector to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, to accelerate clean energy production and deployment, and to enhance climate adaptation and resilience. At the Department of Commerce, we're using every tool at our disposal, and these include leading clean technology-focused trade missions, helping innovators to protect their intellectual property, conducting research that is going to help strengthen our coastal climate resilience, establishing a first-of-its-kind supply chain center with advanced analytical tools, and facilitating foreign direct investment into the U.S.'s booming environmental technologies sector. But we know full well, for all of the powers that we have as the U.S. government, that we cannot do it alone. U.S. industry is an indispensable partner, and that's why I am so pleased to be here to highlight U.S. industry innovation, to advance public-private partnerships, and to deepen commercial cooperation with our international partners. We are so well positioned to be a leader in climate solutions and innovation. We have one of the largest and fastest growing markets for renewable energy. We also have the single largest market in the world for environmental goods and services. We house an industry that has long-standing experience throughout the entire renewable value chain. It ranges from cutting-edge research and development to advanced manufacturing of renewable energy equipment. Our U.S. environmental products and services are recognized globally for their excellence in innovation, in engineering, in durability, and importantly, in long-term operational cost competitiveness. And U.S. companies are eager to deploy their solutions and advance the climate goals of our partner nations around the world. I'm going to give you just one concrete example. The President's Export Council is an advisory body of 27 business, labor, and academic leaders, and they're charged with producing advice to the President on promoting export expansion. Just a week ago, this august council delivered to the President a comprehensive climate recommendation. The council highlighted the opportunities to grow U.S. clean tech and climate exports. They particularly highlighted EV and battery technologies, emissions reduction and decarbonization, carbon capture utilization and storage, energy transition, and climate adaptation. The President's Export Council believes that these technologies can unlock up to 30 gigatons of emissions reduction per year for approximately 60% of annual global emissions. So the potential for clean tech exports to rise substantially in the coming years is undeniable, and particularly in markets that are seeking affordable, sustainable, and reliable solutions to transition from fossil fuels to a clean energy economy, and particularly for nations that are looking to meet their Paris Agreement commitments while simultaneously enhancing their energy security. So now on to today's panel. Our ACE moderator, Director Ebong, and the panelists are going to discuss how U.S. companies and the U.S. government are partnering to deploy clean energy solutions to meet the energy access, the energy security, and the climate goals in developing markets. They're also going to discuss some of the tools that we have as U.S. government, including export finance, and these are tools that are available to U.S. companies. You'll hear directly from 4 representatives of U.S. companies because they are the ones driving the innovation, and they are already out there putting their high-quality clean energy solutions to work globally. So whether you are a U.S. business seeking tools and resources to take you on your export journey, or if you're a government or an international company that's looking to partner with U.S. businesses to develop and implement clean energy products, there's something for you in today's panel. I now have the pleasure of introducing my friend, Director of the U.S. Trade and Development Agency, Eno Ebong. USTDA is a remarkable agency. It is one of the U.S. government's secret weapons. The agency is tiny but mighty. USTDA's superpower is being able to provide project preparation funds very early in the life cycle of an infrastructure project. And speaking of a superpower, that would be Eno. Eno began her public service career at USTDA, where she just kept rising and rising and rising through the ranks as a career civil servant, ultimately becoming deputy director. And now, during the Biden-Harris administration, she's the boss. She is the director of USTDA. Now, remarkably, Eno has an equally distinguished career as a lawyer in the private sector. The 3 government representatives who are on the panel here today were all undercover lawyers. And as a lawyer in the private sector, Eno has represented private companies in public offerings, in financing transactions, in M&A activity, in corporate governance. So I've had the pleasure of working with Eno for over a decade, and they don't come smarter, more expert, more collegial, more creative, or nicer than NO. Over to you, my friend.
So much, Marissa. That is a kind introduction, and I'm almost terrified to start this panel. But I will, first by asking all of our panelists please to join me on stage, starting with Dr. Jennifer Holmgren, Adam Cortese, and Roger Martella from GE. Thank you and good morning to you all. Just adding my greeting, as Marissa, the Undersecretary from Commerce, has said, USTDA is the overseas project preparation agency of the United States government. And that is why I'm particularly thrilled to be here today. We work closely with the U.S. private sector to prepare infrastructure projects so that they can be financed and sustained and successful. And there's no one like these companies that are bringing forth innovation, not only in technology, but in approach, which makes all of the difference in the world to working with global partners and to having an impact in the climate environment. So without much further ado, and I'm going to ask the panelists if, in the course of answering the first question that I will put to you, that you do tell us a little bit about yourselves and your companies as well. I would like to start with you, Jennifer, Dr. Holmgren. I was actually reading an excellent piece that you penned in The Economist not too long ago, in which you talked about the need for us to really change our mindset with respect to systems, when particularly we're talking about the carbon economy and the recycling and using what we have. And you have an amazing technology, carbon recycling technology. So I would like to start out by asking, what does it take to be able to change that mindset, and how have you done so in the context of your carbon recycling technology?
So first of all, thank you for inviting me, and I am one of the people that is lucky enough to work with USTDA, and I really appreciate your leadership. Let me tell you what we do. We recycle carbon emissions from steel mills, refineries, municipal solid waste, and we convert it to the products we use every day. We'll talk about that later. I want to address the circularity question, and the easiest way for me to talk about that is to talk about nature. Nature absolutely wastes nothing. You know, the buds from a tree become fertilizer. The seeds become the next tree. However, we live in a linear economy, not a circular economy where we extract, we use, we throw away. And that is really what needs to change. And that is what we are trying to do. And I guess the question that Ino asked me was, how do you change mindsets? How do you create leadership, whether it's inside the company or outside the company? And the easiest thing I would say is diversity. Okay, I'll start with diversity. There is only one way to create change in my mind, and that is to have different ideas, different points of view, different experiences. I would just point out that 50% of my science team, high-tech company, 400 people, are women. And I think that is an important enabler, so diversity of thought. The second thing I would say is diversity, and that is diversity of ideas and approaches. What we are seeing is so many wonderful technology solutions, and we spend a lot of time criticizing those solutions. We should embrace them and be allies to them. It's not carbon capture and sequestration versus carbon capture and reuse. It's carbon capture and sequestration and carbon capture and reuse. And the final thing I would say is also diversity. Diversity outside of your company, collaboration, working with as many people who have as many different ideas in as many parts of the world as you can. Thank you.
Thank you. And if I can just follow up on that, because you do work in markets overseas, and so how does translating that diversity, that access, that in the context of a technology work in markets overseas?
You know that we've done work in India and China and the Middle East, and I think the first thing you have to think about is that your technology cannot be one size fits all in every part of the world. If I'm going to do a project in the US versus a project in India, a high capex, high cost of capital environment, I don't have to build the plant with the belt and suspenders. I have to build a plant that gets the work done, but is of the lowest capital. And you might lose a little yield or a little something here and there, but you reduce the capital, which is what matters in that market. So I think really, to be successful, we need to make sure that we can change how we implement our approaches in those jurisdictions, and also how we work with the local community. Everybody wants to be able to be part of it. It isn't about taking what you do and taking it somewhere else. It's about being part of it. And one last comment, if I may, I do believe that partnership with USTDA is important. And just quickly, I'm not just saying that because you're sitting next to me, you know. No. You know, the support from the U.S. government for a startup company, we're a little company when you first gave us a grant. The grant actually was important because it was your group saying, what you're doing, Jennifer, makes sense to us. We've done diligence on it. And so that made our partner have more confidence, because I'm a little company, right? And the U.S. government is saying, hey, this is a great idea, we're supporting it. And so they listened differently. And I think that's really important, that what you brought to me was credibility.
Thank you so much. Thank you for saying that. We'll move to Adam Cortese, who leads the largest U.S.-based renewable developer operating internationally. I wanted to make sure that I got that exactly right because it's important. And, you know, this includes the largest utility-scale solar power PV installation in sub-Saharan Africa. I want to start out with you, Adam, just again focusing on, you know, that project. How has that come about? And if you can tell us about your pathway to such an enormous height.
Sure. Thank you, Ino. So our journey in Angola started roughly 5 years ago. We brought roughly 378 megs of utility-scale installations across 5 sites. That relationship grew from there, naturally. We go about our business a little bit differently than other developers do. We're not selling projects. What we do is we jointly develop projects with the sovereigns in which we're working. And so these projects are essentially, you know, organically grown together. You know, there is nobody that knows the system and the needs of a particular country better than the Ministry of Energy. And so what we do is we essentially absorb all of the costs and expense of the development activities, but we're able to, in partnership with the government, define exactly how we can not only deliver additional capacity, but help to build and stabilize the grid. So in the case of Angola, for our second project, we've essentially developed 500 megawatts of utility-scale installations, and an additional 278 across the 4 southern provinces through mini-grid systems and solar cabins. This project is going to have a phenomenal social impact. Exim Bank is our financing partner in this transaction, and actually the flexibility that is afforded by Exim Bank really allows us to help upgrade transmission and distribution infrastructure. But not only that, as we were getting out to the sites in these southern provinces, we were noticing that, okay, this is great. You know, we have a 5% electrification rate out here. It's wonderful that the government wants to address the needs out here as it relates to power. but most of these communities don't even have access to potable water. And so we are able to roll in 440 water projects as well into this deal. So it's really an integrated infrastructure project that we're extremely proud of. In total, I believe that the total cost of the transaction is roughly $2.1 billion, but will affect roughly $1.3 billion in U.S. exports as well. So it's really a win-win for both countries.
Thank you so much for that. The impact, both in terms of export and on communities, is really remarkable. I think both you and Jennifer have talked about the fact that it's not one size fits all. We do this in partnership, and we have found that it is the most effective way in which to get to result. And I think it's something of a hallmark of the way in which we in the United States work, and you in the private sector are taking the lead. So very much appreciate that. Moving to Roger Martella of GE, GE's Chief Sustainability Officer. You know, we were talking a bit earlier about the breadth of sectors in which GE operates. So I think I'm going to put to you a broad question, if you wouldn't mind, to start out with, which is how is GE using innovation and technology to address the climate challenges that we face? It's broad, but I know you're doing it in many areas, so would like to start with that.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the honor of including me on the panel here at the U.S. Center with our terrific partners. And when I think about our role with innovation and technology, I think both of the technology itself, but I'm going to come back to this theme of partnership, which is just as important at this point, particularly our partnerships with the Commerce Department, Ex-Im Bank, and the agencies you see here and everyone at the U.S. Center. But first, in terms of the technology itself, so GE is a 130-year-old company, founded by Thomas Edison and started the electrification revolution with the light bulb. And today we help power 1/3 of the world's energy through our innovation and technology. And about 3 out of every 4 jet engines, or 3 out of every 4 planes, use our jet engines. So these are some of the world's most important and complex technologies, and we're all about innovating them to get to net zero. And we do this as a company, and we do this in partnership with our colleagues here in the government and other governments abroad. So I'd love to talk about both of those. But I think about our energy side of the business, 1/3 of the world's energy. How do we get that to net zero? We want to both electrify the planet so everyone has access to, as the Secretary said, to affordable, reliable, sustainable electricity. And we want to decarbonize the energy sector at the same time, both to achieve climate change goals, but we know other sectors want to decarbonize by being part of the grid and electrifying. So what we do is we focus on what technologies do we have today and what can we invest in tomorrow for the breakthrough technology. So today it's a combination of renewable energy, the onshore wind turbines, offshore wind turbines. We have a terrific wind exhibit here in the Blue Zone. I hope you'll get to see it with some of our innovation. Hydropower, solar power, and then gas power to switch from coal to gas, and we can decarbonize our gas turbines through hydrogen and carbon capture. And then nuclear and small modular reactors, and then of course grid, which is the connective tissue, and we can't succeed without the grid being very resilient, both physical grid tools and digital grid tools. So we work on innovating all of that for today and for the breakthrough technologies of tomorrow. And with that, we know we'll succeed. But we can't do it alone. As large as GE is, 1/3 of the world's energy, 80,000 employees in our energy business, we absolutely can't do it without the partnerships. And what has been the fundamental game changer to the last 2 years has been the U.S. government and other governments deciding that they want to partner with us and us wanting to partner with them and being part of that solution. We see policies like the Inflation Reduction Act, which have really shifted us to just talking about things to really acting on things together, moving in the same direction. So this has been a fundamental game changer towards action. I just want to point something out, if I may. You might see this high-tech looking exhibit over here. We're really proud of this. I think the U.S. Center is too. I hopefully you get a chance to see it. It's not just GE. We've been partnering with the State Department, the Commerce Department, who always has our back, and we came to the conclusion that this partnership between the private sector and the public sector is so strong that we wanted to showcase it together. So John Kerry in the U.S. Center was very generous with giving us a little bit of his real estate. And GE, along with 9 other companies, some of the greatest innovation companies in the United States, put this exhibit together because we wanted to show, in partnership with the U.S., the technologies that we're innovating in the U.S. in the energy sectors, transportation sectors, food sectors, infrastructure sectors. But in the context of today's discussion on export, we wanted to go further than that. We didn't want to say this was the U.S. for the U.S. So if you push one of these buttons, it's a policy button. And what that will do, the purpose of that one was to say, while we've had these successes in the U.S. thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act, thanks to the Jobs Act, the Infrastructure Jobs Act, thanks to President Biden's policies, we don't want to just have these successes in the U.S. We want to export these successes to other places in the world. So what the policy button does is it gives a number of recommendations that we worked with C2ES and Energy Innovation, great NGOs, to say other countries can have the opportunity to work with GE, to work with Boeing, to work with Bechtel, to work with General Motors, to work with Carrier, and create these similar opportunities abroad. None of this is protectionist. And so we're really proud of this. I think it really reflects this partnership, this theme of how we're innovating in the U.S. and trying to share those opportunities, exporting them abroad, whether that's the technology itself or the policy.
Thank you so much. And I think it leads us quite naturally into the more open round of questioning, which I'd like each panelist to answer the same question. We've talked a lot about the partnership, essentially partnership in many dimensions. For us at USTDA, it's partnering with our overseas project sponsors, our grantees, working early on with them to understand together what the priorities are, bringing, because we certainly can't do it, and you'll hear that a lot with respect to these government agencies. We're not the technical experts, perhaps except for NOAA in commerce, but we certainly are not. So we need the expertise of the private sector, and we specialize in making those connections early on between all the relevant stakeholders as a project is being developed. Just building a little bit on what we can do together in the public and private sectors to accelerate climate mitigation, because I think this is the crux of the issue here. We've all described how we are working together. I'm an ambitious sort. Can we do more? What more can we do from your perspectives to accelerate the change that we are all seeking? And we'll go the reverse order, which means you'll start again, Roger. Would you mind?
Thank you for the question. And we talked about the importance of partnership. One of the areas where the partnership, beyond the Inflation Reduction Act, we're thinking globally. And I'll take a real-world example, Ukraine, which is one of our most important missions to make sure we're supporting the energy infrastructure in Ukraine. Nothing's probably more important to us as a company. I think the United States government probably feels pretty closely the same to that. That's the type of partnership. Think about that environment. Businesses love certainty, right? We thrive in certainty. We run towards certainty. We run away from uncertainty. We're trying to deliver gigantic equipment in a war-torn environment in real time so that they can keep the lights on before the winter. Nothing's probably more risky than that. And what the U.S. government has done has really taken all the risks that businesses kind of run away from, and they've de-risked that for us. They've taken all the stuff that would be hard or impossible for us to do when it comes to contracting, financing, funding, logistics, and infrastructure. Like, we need you to find the equipment. That's not easy for us, but we're going to do it. We need you to get it there, and then we'll take it from here. And I felt like this success of this part, I know Samantha Power, I think, was just here before me, and we appreciate her partnership as well with USAID. I feel like this is one important for Ukraine, this type of partnership, but I always felt like Ukraine's not going to be the last time we're dealing with a really challenging need to address an urgent climate issue when it comes to the energy sector. So I'm hoping that we take these lessons we learned from Ukraine, the notion of the private sector should do what the private sector does best. The public sector should do what the public sector does best. When we come together, we can help each other in ways that we couldn't do alone, and use this as a lesson or as an example for other challenges we're going to be facing in this space. And I think Ukraine's a really important precedent for that.
Thank you so much for that. So that notion of even in the most challenging of circumstances, being able to do what we each do best and innovate around it, but then keep the lesson for the future and apply in future circumstances as well. Thank you. Adam, your thoughts on ways we can accelerate together?
Sure. So naturally, I'm going to come at this from the African angle. Here at COP, we're all focused on the energy transition, naturally. But I think in the case of Africa, we also need to be looking at the grid. We have to be able to handle all of that additional generation. And I brought this up initially in sort of my first round here, is the flexibility that we're able to obtain through Exim Bank financing allows us to address that as well. So The loan tenors and interest rates that we're able to get are extremely favorable, which obviously lowers the levelized cost of electricity. But it also allows us to roll in this additional infrastructure, this transmission and distribution infrastructure, which is otherwise very, very difficult to finance, and certainly not on the same terms that you would from Exim Bank. Exim Bank for renewable energy deals is offering 24-year tenors, which is absolutely incredible. As it relates to transmission and distribution, you'd be lucky to get 7 or 8 year tenors. So for me, it's all about what we can do not only for generation, but to upgrade the grid so that it can handle all of this additional capacity.
Thank you so much for that. I hope we have time to come back to the grids and mini grids and off-grid work, because I think that's very critical in the whole picture. So from what you just said, I would highlight using our tools in the U.S. government optimally, right? Being able to make sure that we extend as much as we can within the context of our missions, of our enabling statutes to meet the moment and the challenge. Jennifer, your thoughts on this notion of acceleration?
I think, and I'll pick two topics where I think the U.S. government has done a great job across the government and where one could increase potentially and do more. So the first one is standards. When I think about sustainable aviation fuel as an example, one of the things that the FAA did is they created a standard way to test and quickly certify new fuels. And that was called the clearinghouse. And so new ideas from startup companies were able to go in there, and they had all the equipment set up, they had the funding set up, they had everything set up so you could get the ASTM certification that you need to put fuel on a plane for commercial flight. I have seen other countries now replicate that to enable also their teams to accelerate. So But if you don't standardize and you enable new ideas to get in, we have a problem. So that's the first thing that will make us go faster. And I think the other thing that I've seen that helps go faster is the de-risking through global collaboration. So I've seen the Biofuels Alliance and certain things like that, which bring all stakeholders to the table to develop new approaches, alternate energy, alternate fuels, alternate materials. And the convening power of the government, industry cannot do that. We do not have the convening power. And of course, the U.S. government has tremendous convening power.
Thank you so much for that. Each of you have brought a particular vision to that, which they all actually dovetail really well together. I think that point about the convening power of government, I'm particularly proud of the efforts that the Biden-Harris administration has made to bring us all together, whether it is through the Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment or through other avenues with our partners and allies to address these really difficult and challenging questions. In the time that we have left, I think there's a time for one more round of questions, and that would be to talk about a little bit in the markets in which you work, where you see the challenges, the particular challenges to your sectors, or more broadly, as you would like, and opportunities as we move towards net zero. We're really thinking ahead, but rooted in the experience today. Would you point out the particular challenges, but also the opportunities? And Adam, I'd like to start with you.
Okay, again, I'm going to come at this from the Africa angle. So
I'm okay with that.
As far as challenges are concerned, I think, a lot of times there is not the regulatory framework in place for renewable energy projects. And so this is something that we often have to sort of navigate around and in some instances help, give suggestions on how to structure, because, once our project is said and done, we want to be an example that attracts more foreign direct investment into the sector. And so, I think there's an opportunity there with our open dialogue to help affect that. as far as opportunities, I mean, solar is decentralized, right? So this is a perfect opportunity for Africa. We can put sort of our facilities close to where the energy is needed. I liken it to sort of the proliferation of mobile phones in Africa, right? The landlines were never there. They leapfrogged sort of that technology, right? And I think there's the opportunity for them to do so in energy as well.
Thank you so much. And Jennifer, what would you say from your perspective are some of the challenges and opportunities?
For us, we do something that's so completely different, utilizing a waste gas to make products that were normally made from sugar or corn or something like that. And so there's a lot of pushback around, well, does this fit legislation? How does it qualify? How is it handled? Does it fit the renewable fuel standard and things like that? That becomes a barrier for us. And so I think one of the biggest challenges is that we need technology neutral standards. That to me is really critical because that enables new ideas to have a seat at the table and does not exclude anybody. So I guess that's the challenge and the opportunity.
Thank you so much. And Roger, you get the last word.
Well, thank you very much. I would just like to echo the point about technology. I think all these policies need to be technology neutral. I think the Inflation Reduction Act is a nice step in that direction. But having said that, as a company with a very diverse portfolio, we don't think policy should be picking winners or losers, and the technology should be working itself out. But with that, let me start with the opportunity maybe as a global company in 170 countries. The opportunity, you see this at COP28, I think the UAE has been a real leader here, is no one is debating that I know of, no one debates with me about whether to do this. It's all about how quickly can we do it and how to do it. And I think what's happened over the last couple of years in the UAE, I will give them credit for this, they've been part of it, is a few years ago, not too long ago, people were critical of the Paris Agreement. And they said, well, we don't want to do the Paris Agreement because what's China doing, what's India doing, what's Brazil doing? It will put us at a competitive disadvantage if we sign up and they don't. UAE has fundamentally changed that. Like, we don't care what China and Brazil or India do. We're going to do it because it gives us a competitive advantage. This is our future. This is our Silicon Valley. And we need to be part of innovation and technology and a secure grid. So from where I sit, the whole world has come around to now this is driving economic development, not a concern for economic development. The problem we have is the supply versus demand. There's much more demand than supply, and we have to fix that. And that really is the challenge. The challenge is we have to be very deliberate with wanting to tailor solutions for all over the world and who needs what, where, when, and how. But we don't always have the same policy environments we have in the U.S. Not that the U.S. is perfect. We have permitting issues. We have other issues. But we don't have the certainty of the U.S. or the EU policy environments everywhere we work. And the more you have uncertainty, back to my point about Ukraine, the more businesses want to steer more towards certainty away from the uncertainty when you have limited supply. This is where the Commerce Department, where Ex-Im Bank has really had our back in trying to, again, de-risk some of those, because we want to help, we want our technology to be everywhere. We want I want every kid to be able to turn the lights on, every parent to have access to health care, the opportunities for a prosperous life. But when you're dealing with a risky policy environment uncertainty, it makes it harder. So this is where this partnership with these agencies comes in, so we can advocate, and I can go back to my leadership team and advocate, yeah, it's a little uncertain. We know the U.S. government has our back. They're going to help us get through those choppy waters. But it's really important and really critical because we have to resolve for that where we can.
Thank you so much, Roger. I have to say, from my vantage point, leading an agency that is working at the early stages of project development, providing grants for feasibility studies, technical assistance, pilot projects, it is such an honor and a pleasure and a privilege, really, to be working with companies like yours that are at the forefront of innovation, at the forefront of trying to make it work in a holistic sense. So I want to thank each of you, Roger Martella, Adam Cortese, and Jennifer Holmgren for joining us today on this panel. Please give them a round of applause. And stay where you are, because we have the highlight of our panel this morning as the chair of the Export-Import Bank of the United States, Rita Jo Lewis, will close us out with a few remarks. Just to introduce the chair, my good friend and partner of USTDA, I'm just going to perhaps not go into all of the detail of the bio, but say that you are leading transformational change at the Export-Import Bank. And it is incredibly important for our companies to be able to do what they are doing, that you are doing what you are doing. I should add, though, that you bring so much experience to the role, from over 25 years of leadership in international affairs, in legal, public policy, business, and regulatory affairs. So really the perfect person at the perfect time to lead the bank and share with us your closing remarks. Please.
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you very much, Director. That was so special to be able to be here with you and our Secretary as the only event, as she said, that is here in this center focused on U.S. exports. But, you know, I think what we want to do is to leave the key message of XM is about U.S. XM is how we are eager to support low-carbon U.S. exports and the ways in which XM works with partner agencies like USTDA, like the Department of Commerce, but also what's important is the men and women that are on, the men and women that is on this stage, our private sector partners to accomplish that mission. So please join me again in applauding the panelists once again. You know, when I see people like Adam here and I see Roger here, we work with them so much. And then as I was speaking with Jennifer, who is our CEO, at another event, and she said that she got the XM message loud and clear. That is also another time for her to think about XM. And I said, well, we must be doing something right, Jennifer, and delivering the right message, because we really want folks to understand that our mission is clear and our mission is simple. We are supporting U.S. jobs by facilitating exports. And so what has brought us here today is that in the Biden-Harris administration at USXM, we are helping American businesses like Sun Africa, like GE, and also like Lausanne Tech, where we hope to continue to support them as they create new job opportunities, strengthen our infrastructure at home and globally, and ensure that our partners around the world have access to the resources they need to invest in their people. You know, one of the things that is so clear about XM is during the last fiscal year, XM was able to support a total of more than $8.7 billion in transactions. I can tell you that we were able to support those transactions in the areas of which Congress asked us to when we were reauthorized in 2019. To make more financing available in sub-Saharan Africa, make more available for small business, but not just small business for small business sake, but for women, minorities, and underserved communities. They asked us to make more available in the transformational export areas. And then they also said, what has brought us here, can we make more financing available in the renewable energy, energy efficiency, energy storage, as well as environmentally beneficial areas. I can tell you that as we have begun to fulfill the mandate that Congress has asked us, it gives us clear pleasure to say that we are carrying out that mission to support U.S. companies and America's jobs. When you hear people like Adam talk about the project that XM funded, not only is it going to be able to provide that 500 megawatts of power. We were so delighted and excited that at our annual conference this year in 2023, that Sun Africa was the deal of the year. It was a $900 million, I think Adam forgot to tell you, it was a very, very large project. It's the largest renewable energy project that XM has ever supported. And it was the project in Angola with Sun Africa. The thing about that project that was also very exciting is that it aligns with XM's commitment to financing environmentally beneficial projects and renewable energy projects, as well as President Biden's partnership for global infrastructure and investment goals, all while supporting over 1,600 jobs in the United States of America. You know, our history is long and it is deep. XM next year will be celebrating its 90th anniversary. And one of the things that is exciting when I see GE and so many of you in this audience and others that we have met and worked with alongside this week is to be able to see the companies that are shining examples of America's ingenuity around the work that they do with their workers and as business men and women. You know, our first financing has been a long time ago. And so we also, Adam, financed the first solar project for India's national solar mission. So to be able to come full circle 89 years later, to say that we are continuing in that work that we have done and continuing to bring the financing tools that we have at XM, everything from our direct loans, our working capital guarantees, our loan guarantees, and our insurance products to projects that is so important here today. And so it's not just about what we've done in Africa. It is about what we have done in the global south, north, east, and west, as well as the fact that we are excited that XM was also able to support this year in November under President Biden's supply chain initiative that he launched right after becoming elected, where we authorized over a $169 million loan to Beta Technology to finance its state-of-the-art net zero final assembly facility, which will support 400 good-paying clean energy jobs. It was exciting for us under that particular initiative because as you sit and listen to the CEO who came before all of us during the APEC summit to basically talk about the fact that how the working for supporting good paying clean energy jobs and working around sustainability is at the forefront of the efforts of that company. We understand that financing under all of the types of programs that we have at XM is based on U.S. jobs. So the work that each of you are doing here to help create clean, renewable energy is helping to solve the most challenging global crisis we have ever had. So when I sit and I listen to our panelists and talk about the work that they're doing domestically, but the work that they're doing in markets overseas, I believe we have had an excellent showcase of U.S. innovation, U.S. technology, and the way they have supported U.S. also small businesses and their workers in the U.S. The key here has really been about partnerships, and that partnership I think you see in the three of us that have worked together since we joined the administration. But it is not about us alone. It is the partnership that we have to work with the private sector. And in that partnership, all of us know we cannot do it alone. I think you heard that theme over and over. You have listened to the different journeys in this room, not only today, but about what others have done in their export journey. We have listened to them also talk about not just the challenges, but the opportunities. And that is what we are trying to shout from the rafters here in this U.S. Center, that there is a win-win-win for everyone. There's a win for the United States. There's a win for our companies, and there's a win for our partner nations that we work with. And then also, as I hear GE, Roger talked about the fact of how our financing can be a game changer, not only at home, but abroad. And so we want you to know that we believe all of us working together are stronger together, and that there is a sense of urgency that we all have. But the most important thing, Roger, I will use your words, U.S. has your back. Thank you so much.